Hello there, everyone. International 240 here. We're back again with this Oldsmobile 307, and it's time to put the pistons in the engine. As you can see, I got a couple of them going already. But before you attempt to put it in, the oil that's in your cylinders that you have in there, you want to get that out because, as I'm sure you know, oil attracts dirt and dust. So I'm just going to use a little bit of rubbing alcohol on a paper towel. You can use brake cleaner, anything like that really. Something that would dry up that oil. Just take a little bit on a paper towel. And just like we did whenever we got this thing back from the machine shop, just wipe the cylinders down real well. And if your paper towel comes out dirty, go ahead and wipe it down again. A little bit of dirt on there, not too much. I'm going to go ahead and wipe it again. Now I always try and use the inside of the paper towel because as it sits on the roll like that, it can get dirt on this outside, so I always try and use the inside. Especially if you're storing your paper towels in a shop like I am, where there's all kinds of dirt and stuff flying around. But okay, that looks pretty good. Now what you're going to do is just take some nice clean engine oil, just a little bit around the outside here. Just go ahead and take your finger and just wipe that around the inside there. I use engine oil because it's this is 10W30. This is what this thing's going to be running on, so there's no harm if it mixes with the oil or anything. It's a little bit thicker too, so I mean it'll help us with this install. Okay, now that you have your cylinder all cleaned and lubricated, I'm going to turn you guys over this way a little bit, just so that you can see. First thing you're going to want to do is get your liner in there and get it all greased up. And before you install this or put your compressor on, find something to protect to go around these studs so that whenever you're driving it in, it doesn't scratch up your wall or nick up your crankshaft. Usually what I use is a piece of like a 3/8 hose or something, and I cut it off. But I can't find any junk hose laying around right now. And right now the auto parts store is closed, so I mean, I'm just going to be using some duct tape. Just wrap a little bit around these studs. It'll work just as good. Okay, now that we have our studs wrapped, we're going to go ahead and take our piston ring compressor. Now this is the compressor I use. I've had this for a while. It's a piece of crap, but it does work. Now before you put your compressor on, you want to make sure your rings are all lined up. Make sure that they didn't move any. And all you're going to do is just double check your rings. Just put the compressor on, slip it down over them. Now I go to about there, just to make sure that the bottom band is around my oil ring. So I go till about that much is out. It's got this little key, you just crank it. You want to make sure this stays level too. Just go ahead and squeeze a little bit to make sure it's level. And a little trick I use, I put a little bit of motor oil on the inside of this to help it kind of slide a little better. nice and tight. Make sure there's no dirt in your bearing. And now I'm going to turn you back to the engine. Okay. Now what we're going to do is lower our assembly in there, our connecting rod and our piston. Now take very good care not to nick up your cylinder walls. I like to reach from the bottom here, get my finger on one of these studs and just kind of guide it down to the down to where the crank will be. Okay, now we got it there. Just kind of very easily with it, kind of line it up in there. Just take your time and make sure you don't scratch it up or anything. Okay. So now that we have our compressor and our piston there, what you're going to want to do is get the handle of a hammer to tap with. Now, like I mentioned before, this compressor is a piece of garbage, and so sometimes the rings will pop out or whatever, but if you kind of work it with your hand a little bit, it seems to work okay. But take your hammer handle, just kind of tap on it. See how it's driving it? You don't need to slug on it real hard or anything, but just kind of tap it to get it to start moving. There we go. Like I said, this thing's a piece of crap and it doesn't work out well, but I'm not about to spend money on another one. Good, works good enough. Okay, now that you got your piston started in, you want to feel, and I'm just going to turn this over real quick and show you. I like to get my crank shaft, here's the one we're going to right here. I like to get it as far away from this cylinder as possible, because whenever I'm driving it in, I don't want to have to worry about trying to guide this, you know, so it'll avoid my crank while I'm tapping it in. So I like to move it as far away as possible. Just so that's one less thing you have to worry about, you know. So I'm going to flip it back over. Now what you're going to do is take your hammer again, and this time reach up under your engine and feel your feel where your connecting rod studs are, and just tap on it. And just kind of guide it and make sure that it's going where it's supposed to until you feel it, that the studs are around your crank. Okay, I'm going to flip it over now again. So you can see my studs are right around there. And I've chosen to do this bank already and do this one next, because whenever you're doing a bank and there's no other connecting rods on your crank, it's real easy, because you just kind of you don't have to line it up as good because you don't have anything else here. But whenever you already have a bank of connecting rods on your crank, you'll notice that you just have a little bit of space. So I chose to do this because it's the harder side, and I wanted to show you guys how I do it, at least. So we're going to go to this other side here, and we're going to just watch and make sure that it lines up. And if you feel it tap solidly, tap on your studs back and check your rod and your liner. Make sure that they haven't become like damaged. Take it slow. And you'll hear it bottom out. You'll hear that the tone changes when I'm hitting the piston. Here it becomes solid. Now we're fully seated on there. So now that you're seated, go ahead and remove your duct tape or whatever you're using to protect your studs. I'll leave this little tail on here so I can grab it and just kind of rip it off, but of course it's not going to do that. Would have been nice to have hose, but don't have to be messing around like this. But okay, now that that little ordeal is over, go ahead and grab your cap and smear some assembly lube in there. As you can see, we got our number on there. Match it up with your number that you had on there. You want to be gentle with this too. Make sure that it's not going to hang up or anything. There will be a little resistance as you push it on, but get it seated. I like to make sure that there's at least a little bit of some type of oil on these threads, just to kind of help it slide on there a little easy. And also look at your nuts, the way that you took them off. See how the bottom's shiny? The top is just crappy looking. Make sure you put them on the right way. So the shiny side will go down, the crappy side will go up. And the torque spec to these rod nuts is 40 foot-pounds. Now I do it in 4 steps. That's more than you need. You could probably do it in like 2 or 3. But it doesn't hurt to be too careful, I suppose. Ten. 10. I don't know why this thing won't fit on there. $20. $30. And $40. Okay, now that your piston is in and you have it torqued down, what you want to do is measure the end play now between these two. See how it has a little bit of wiggle room. What you'll do is just take your feeler gauges and stick it in between them and measure it and compare with the specs. But just an effort to save a little bit of time, I'm just going to skip that step right now. I'll do it later. But just for the sake of the video, not taking all day, I'm just going to show you what you do next after you measure that. Okay, now we have our piston down in there. And go ahead, take a clean paper towel again and wipe that cylinder out again. Just go around it and wipe it out. Now if you notice, see how there's like a black residue? I noticed with these coated skirt pistons that they leave like a black residue behind. I think it's from the coating. But just want to make sure there's no dirt in there. Take a little bit of motor oil, and I go around the top of this piston in here just with a little bit of motor oil. Right in between where the ring is and the cylinder wall, because you're going to be rotating this and you don't want it to prematurely mess your wall up. Just take a little bit of motor oil, and every time you put a piston in, you want to rotate it at least one full revolution. The reason you do that is just to check to make sure nothing's binding. And if you do it with each one, after you put a piston in and you notice it binds, you know that the issue is with that piston. So instead of just waiting till they're all in and you find out you have a bind and you don't know which one it is, just do it after each one, so then just in case if you do have a problem, you know where the problem is. Let's go ahead and let that oil kind of soak in for a second. And grab something to turn your crank with. I know I have an adjustable wrench around here somewhere. And you'll notice that with each piston you put in, you'll have more drag on your crank. That's normal because obviously you have new rings in there and everything, so it's going to drag a little bit. I'm going to go ahead and pin this so that it doesn't roll on me. Move you guys back so you have a good view. Get a little bit of that light out of there. Okay, I'm just going to go ahead and rotate the crank. Check for anything that isn't smooth. See how it's nice and smooth, no binding anywhere. That's what you want. Okay, now that you've confirmed that everything's good, go ahead and line up your crankshaft for your next piston. Like I said, I go all the way down to the bottom. Okay, so that's pretty much the idea. Like I said, make sure you do that clearance between your connecting rods down there. after you have your piston in. But I only have one more cylinder or piston left to install, and then I'll start buttoning up this bottom end. Starting to kind of look like an engine. But that's about it for this video. Thanks for watching, and I'll have another one up shortly.